Okay, we are live for episode number 9 of the Authentic You podcast with my good longtime friend, Jessyca Burdette. Today, we are going to be talking about some very sensitive subjects. So we're going to be talking specifically about mental health awareness. And mental health awareness isn't just, suicide awareness. There's so many other things. So I'm actually going to read and start this podcast by talking about a few different hotline numbers that are available and resources that are available for people who might be struggling. And I can say from personal experience, I've had to call one of these numbers before myself. So I'm just going to read these numbers and make sure that people are aware that these are available. So 988 is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Press 1 for veterans or option 2 for Spanish, Espanol. There's also, if you were to go to the afspnational Instagram, there's a great post on here that also has additional numbers for National Maternal Mental Health Hotline. That is 1-833-TLC-MAMA. There's also postpartum support international helpline, and that number is 1-800-944-4773. And there's several others that are on here. There's Leadership Alliance hotlines. But overall, again, it's a sensitive subjects that we're going to be talking about today. Both of us have, a lot of stuff that we've gone through personally and, emotionally through the years. I'm never shy about talking about,
Same.
When I was a drug addict, most recently going through a divorce, and, that comes with some heartache. And what led up to that was a lot of personal not mental health issues, I wouldn't say. Well, maybe I should say it as mental health. I've never really referred to it that way.
If it affects you in any way, I feel like it affects with your mental.
Yeah. For sure, what I've noticed, at least recently, is having to be very vulnerable. Being vulnerable is a key part of managing through your mental health. Mm-hmm. And maybe what's funny is even just the way I kind of felt by saying mental health, like it almost feels like it's a dirty word when it's not.
It's crazy. So when you say that, so I lost my younger brother to suicide, and I didn't know anything about suicide. You hear the word, but it was so taboo, like suicide. Oh my God, it's a terrible thing. So you don't really know much about it until it really affects you personally and on that level. So as soon as I lost him, I dove headfirst into anything I could to find information about mental health, about suicide, why it happens. Sometimes we don't know why, they leave without a trace sometimes. And it's a scary situation, especially for me. I was 21 and he was only 17. And you think 17, he had his whole life. What was he struggling with? Turns out, after he passed, we went back and looking at it he was manic. And I think what affected me the most was my mom had reached out to doctors before and was like, hey, there's something going on. I don't know what it is. And then they left it as oh, it's just an adolescence teen. Yeah. And, knowing her as a mom, no, there's something, something's happening here. And yeah, all the signs after he had passed just pointed to being manic. And that
what is manic?
So manic is basically you have your highest of highs and you'll have your lowest of lows. And when you're at the all-time high, life is great. There's not a care in the world. You love everyone around you and it's great. It's normal life, quote unquote. And then you'll hit your lowest of lows where you think that the world's out to get you. You mean nothing to anybody. Nobody likes you. It's pretty intense. And to be 17 and trying to feel those emotions and going through those waves of your body changing too, and trying to understand what's happening within yourself, that alone is hard.
Yeah, it's interesting because so he was 17 and you think about just today, and you're an educator.
Yeah.
Right? So you're now in that environment. You're seeing kids that age and younger, and I'm sure, it's one of those things where you everyone has those highs and lows. And so it's how do you figure out that you're in that situation or someone is in that situation, especially because most of them don't talk about it. So do you see when you're spending time at school, is there key things that you start to find or traits that you start to see that you might reach out to a parent and say, hey, I think we need to talk about some things with your kid.
Yeah. So I most recently had a student where you could just tell she was just had her moments of just talking to friends and being friendly, and then she went to just shutting down. And I'm like, oh God. And then like it kind of like triggered me, right? As like a post-traumatic, like it was triggered me in my past. And I'm like, there's something wrong with her. So I went to talk to her and I was like, hey, like, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. And I kind of gave her insight. I was like, listen, I've been through this. This is what's happening. I'm your safe space. If you need to talk, come talk to me. She didn't say anything. And she just pulled up her sleeve and there was just cuts. And it's like, it's to me, I don't know if it was like a mom thing or if it was like a, knowing someone who had suicide. If I just knew, but it was strange. But yeah, you'll notice little signs, especially in teens. But it is hard because I do junior high. And so they also are in that adolescent teen and defiant mode. So it is hard to like kind of pinpoint, but there are signs.
Yeah. And obviously you're a mom.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 girls.
3 girls.
I know.
I don't know your daughter's name, but the younger one, she's like a superstar.
She's
like
a menace.
She is like, I feel like you're always posting a video of her like dancing or singing, or she's like the life of the party,
She's my wild child. Okay. That's Selena. She's 6. I also have a 12-year-old, Stella, and then a 19-year-old, Cecilia. Okay. Cecilia's amazing. She's always been a straight A student. I haven't had to worry. She's at Cal State Fullerton now, living her best life. The one that I have to say I am worried about is my 12-year-old. I've noticed signs. She's a lot like Jeff, my brother that passed away. She shows a lot of his traits, and that scares the shit out of me. Yeah. And I had actually reached out to a school counselor, and I spoke to them, and I said, listen, I'm concerned as a mom. This is what I've been through, and I'm noticing traits of her where she had friends and was all about going with her friends and hanging out to where she wanted to be alone. Didn't want to socialize with anybody. Was very negative. And I'm like, what is happening? Yeah. This is not okay. So I reached out and she started counseling and she hated it. She hated it at first. She's like, I don't want to talk to anybody. And I was like, I get it. And I understand that. But sometimes the hardest things to talk about is what you need to talk about. Yeah. And sometimes you don't want to talk to your mom. Yeah. And I get it. Like there's things you don't want to tell your mom. Go speak to somebody. And she did, and she ended up loving it. Nice. And amazing. Yeah. The transformation that from when she started counseling to when it ended, different child.
Yeah, and I want to actually stay on that topic for a second because my mom did the same thing with me growing up. And so I would highly recommend any parent, it is tough to kind of to make that decision. And for whatever it is, like every parent is different, but some parents might look at putting your child in counseling as like, I don't know. It's like it's shining a light on you as a parent. Like, are you doing something wrong? Why can't you talk to your children and get through it with them? But the reality is, if you've more than likely by the time you get there, you've already tried that. Yes, you've already done that. And so, like, parents should not be afraid to invest time into their kids, and then if they are not being able to get through, to reach out for help and get a professional, someone who's trained to do it, to pull that up, because it might take time. Exactly. It might take time. For me, I think initially why my mom put me in there was because my mom and my dad divorced when I was 3 years old, and he remarried and she remarried, and when I got into school, the problem was that my dad really was not around. Okay. He would show up and take off for big periods of time, and I was maybe just a little bit of a ruckus kid, and I would start getting into fights in elementary school and then in junior high. But specifically between elementary school and junior high, what was happening was I was just always angry, and I was always like, I would shut down. I wouldn't talk to people. And there was just so much stuff that was going on with me personally. And I felt really alone, and cause I was the youngest. So you have an older brother, older sister, they're getting attention because they're in their 5 year. My brother was 2 years older. My sister was almost 6 years older. So they're in a tough stage too during the divorce process. Right. And so I think my mom just picked up, to add to this, we have in our family, there is mental health issues. I know for certain bipolar runs in our family. Yeah. And so I think she was brave enough to realize that I was going to be the problem kid. Out of all the 3, I was going to be the one that was going to have the issues. and I wasn't gonna be able to get through, and she wasn't able to get through with me. I'm just like, I'm one of those. I shut out,
Okay.
or I could put on a front very well. I could make it seem that I'm very good.
Yeah.
I could go from being super sad to all of a sudden I'm perfectly fine. And if you're that person that's right, it's almost scary if you're like having a really negative conversation with me and you can tell I'm down, and then all of a sudden 2 seconds later I got to put on a fake for whatever reason. That could be scary for you as the person who's close to me, realizing, oh, if he can do that with that person, he's doing that to me too, or can do that with me. So my mom was smart enough to figure that out, and there was a lot of issues that were going on. And
I'm so awesome.
So same thing, and again, to any parent that's out there, I mean, it helped me a lot. Eventually, years later, I was going through something personally myself, and I ended up realizing I can't manage this by myself. I don't feel comfortable talking to my friends about it. I had a lot of trauma, and I haven't brought it up to anybody, so I need to do it for myself.
Yeah.
And so I was having a lot of anger issues, and I ended up having to go to a counselor to work through that. And then eventually I also did a life coach, which was like really, that was game changer.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did a counseling for 2 or 3 years, probably in like 2013, 2015, somewhere in that range, for a couple of years. And then from like 2016 to like 2018, I did like a life coaching, 18-month life coach, which was great. Like all of those have created, something.
Well, I think I've told you before, and I'll continue to tell you. I'm proud of you. I know I've seen you in your lowest of lows, and I've seen you in your highest of highs, and I'm proud of where you're at now. Was it hard for you to ask for help, or to realize like, hey, I might need some help? And
you know what? I still struggle with it. So there's several stages that I've gone through, and I talk about this. Every stage in life is going to be different.
Yeah.
So I've talked to Maria more about this than anybody, but I feel like
I have to stop you.
Sure.
I love that you have somebody who you feel like you can be so open and, like you said, vulnerable with.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
Yeah. No, thank you. I honestly, it's
because not everyone can find that, and not everyone has that.
Yeah. It's been the last like five months. I feel like I've been a lot more vulnerable and honest, and I feel like my life is moving forward.
You shine different. You just
a little glow.
I love that.
Some electricity. Her and I joke about that. We send each other lightning bolts.
Oh my God, you guys are so cute.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, sorry, continue.
So one of the things that I shared with her was, I think one of my problems is that a lot of people have one or two big traumas that happen in their life.
Yeah.
All of us are going to deal with grief. All of us are going to deal with loss. All of us are fighting a clock. None of us are making out of this alive. Spoiler alert, we all die in the end, right? So, but I think for me, I have a lot of pain in the sense that, and it's hard for me to deal with it because I overthink a lot. That's actually my flaw. It's a strength and a flaw.
Guilty.
So because I had the loss of Shane when I was 17, he was 18. Mm-hmm. I then used that as an excuse and a crutch to get into drugs and to get to that situation. Then I had to battle through the loss of my best friend, who was essentially my brother. And then I had to battle through drug addiction. And then I got through drug addiction. And then I became this like alcoholic that was like angry all the time. And I was never abusive, but I would always verbally challenge people. And it just, I'm a big person. People don't want to challenge you. So you create this ego that's not healthy, because now you're this fucking raging egotistical person. So I had to manage through that. And then I lost all the weight, and like losing weight, like there's body dysmorphia. So there's these weird pain points that like make it very like, I don't want to say that it's like, oh, woe is me, I'm the only person who's had all these challenges, but there are not a lot of people that have like such specific losses. You know what I mean? To like, it's hard enough to be I guess to have survived, drug addiction, and then survive, basically body dysmorphia. And I know like that sounds like a weird thing, but the reality is if you're not happy with what you look like physically, it plays a huge emotional piece, and you're just like, what am I doing?
It messes with your mental health, Joe.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, one of the conversations that I had with her was like, hey, like, I don't know if what if I'm not good for you, because here's the baggage. Here's the baggage that I have, and I need you to understand.
But the fact that you laid it all on the table.
Yeah. I think it was a healthy thing to do. And honestly, starting this podcast was very helpful for me too, because I've been extremely vulnerable in this, and I think it opens up a little bit of opportunity for me to share where I'm at, because it's so easy to put on a facade and pretend you're something that you're not, or
especially on social media.
Oh, for sure.
You know, you can put on that front and everything looks great, but behind the scenes, it's dark and scary.
Well, and the other part is like you get used to putting out the good. So then people are happy for you. And then you're like, well, shit, I better not reach out to anybody when I'm sad or unhappy. And that's what I was struggling with. Most recently, that's what I was struggling with. I was like, everyone would be like, are you okay? Are you good? And yeah,
it's like, let's post another video.
Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
So I think I've been a lot more active in and more of a proponent of like, let's talk about what might not be going well, and let's talk about some potential opportunities to dig out of that. Today, actually, a good friend of mine, Claude, and I'm going to share this story with you. So, navigating through a lot of like little pieces right now in my life. I'm going through a divorce, right? My business, I mean, I've been pumping in like $20,000 a month
that's wild.
in cash into a business to try and get it positive. And we're, it is such a crazy thing to even say that statement. And you're going through those two things. Then you're in a new relationship, long distance. And then, normal work life doesn't stop. Fatherhood doesn't stop. Normal stresses of job duties and other duties, friends, reach out to you. So like I was going through this phase where like I felt like the easiest way to explain it is I felt like I was like walking through like the thickest mud. And I was like, I knew I was moving forward, but it was just like every step I took almost like dug me in deeper and deeper and deeper. And the good thing is that I started being a lot more vulnerable. So I started sharing that with people, and people started reaching out to me. Really good friends started reaching out to me. Maria was a big resource. My friend Claude, who was on this podcast, my friend Ray, who's been on this podcast, Charlie, who's been on this podcast. And each one of those guys have been battling through their own struggles. Yeah. And so because they've been vulnerable with me, it's easier for me to be vulnerable to them. And crazy enough, Claude actually sent me, he picked up on it. He picked up on some stuff from one of my last podcasts, and he was just like, hey, I didn't realize you were going through all of that. And I can't imagine that you're actually all the way through it right now.
Yeah.
And he sent me this book. It's called 828. I'm actually going to send you a copy of it because I really love it. And it's about dealing with grief.
Oh, okay.
And the different stages of grief. And this woman has this really like this approach of sharing, and she's actually a crisis. Like that's what she does. She gets groups of people together and really talks through different crises that they're going through. And so he sent me that book, and it just like hit me like, oh my God, like my life is not that bad. Like you can get through all these things. And here's this man who's, a friend picking up on something that I needed. I'm not asking for help, but he's volunteering it. He's sharing with me. Here's a book. Here's an opportunity for you to do that. And so it's just things like that.
Yeah. That's a good friend.
It's a good friend. And it just shows you like, I wouldn't have been able to necessarily, of course I think I could manage through the mud by myself, but when someone throws you the lifeline, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Or when you're willing to grab a lifeline
it's
or
all
raise
about a good
a
support
hand.
System too.
Absolutely.
Having those people in your corner and on your side.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that going through a divorce alone, it's not the funnest of things, and it's not easy, especially when you're the one wanting out.
Yeah.
And then you have that other party who's like trying to do everything in their power to like win you over when it's too little, too late, kind of in that feeling. So I know that alone messed with my mental health. Going through so much of my brother and all that stuff, and then having to deal with divorce, it's been a struggle. And I know I reached out asking for help, and I was shot down. And let me tell you, I was pissed. I had reached out to my doctors and letting them know, like, listen, I'm not doing okay. Like, I'm struggling. Going through this divorce has really messed with me because I basically left with nothing. I know I just wanted out. And I was like, I'm struggling. And I was told, it just seems like you're going through a divorce. Yeah. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So then that's when I realized, like, I just have to help myself. I have to figure something out.
Yeah.
And I reached out. I was asking friends and talking to them and like I said, support system is huge.
Yeah.
And so thank God for friends and family, because my oldest daughter too, she's my best friend. So I know she's had to deal with a lot of my situations, but she's a trooper.
Yeah.
She's been through a lot.
You and I actually talked about this too, because I told you, I was like, I was like, it's going to be kind of healthy to have, yeah. First of all, I didn't even mention this. You're the first female host or guest, you know? So
I love that.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Did I win something?
No, there's no prize. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I, you know, you and I kind of just had messaged each other back about this, and like, it is good to, like, I think, you know, be able to have different perspectives, you know, from a male and a female perspective. And I don't know if I definitely have admitted that I did not navigate through the separation with Julie the best way.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I didn't, especially the way that I did everything and just kind of just dropped the hammer. And I, you know, really at the end of the day, I don't know that there was any other way to necessarily do it that it probably just would have prolonged it, in my opinion. But one of the things that I think may have been helpful, and is just my perspective, is that once the dust had kind of settled, maybe a month or so in, you know, one of the times that I went to go pick up Mateo, I picked him up and then I came back and actually dropped him off. She had a lot of questions, and she said, I got to ask you something. And she had a lot of questions. Some of it was about Maria and I's relationship and how we started and how everything. Some of it was about previous to that.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and, you know, at the end of the day, I had to, again, part of this process, healthy, you know, aspect for me to try to get through what I'm going through, is I have to put all the cards on the table.
Yeah.
And so I found it was the most fair way to just say, ask me what you'd like and I'll tell you what you want to know.
I love that you did that, because a lot of men wouldn't.
It definitely wasn't easy.
Yeah.
You know, you feel like a dick. Like, at the end of the day, like, you know, this is somebody that you're going to be hurting by giving them the answers. But I think it was somewhat helpful. Also, right away, you know, her and I talked about it right when it happened in January. We talked about counseling for herself and the kids.
Oh, okay.
You know, I have not elected to do counseling at this point in time. I don't know that it was necessary for me, because I think what happened was I had a few months leading up to it. I had already kind of made my decision, which was the foul part that I did was, yeah, at that point, it probably would have been good to start having the communication with her. Not probably, it would have been the best to start having the conversation with her. But I felt like if I had done that, it would have been like more of a, like, well, let's fix things versus like I had already made my decision. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, that has been a big part of, I think, why we're in a good spot. Okay. And I say good as in we're able to talk with each other. We're able to make sure to manage and co-parent the kids. We are running the business together. We did and are in the process of closing on an equity partner who will actually come in to, so I won't have to keep putting $20,000 in every single month, which I think is a huge win for both of us, because then it's like we can really separate ourselves.
Got it. Yeah.
And both move forward. And I think as part of any kind of grief or mental health, if you have even a taste of something that's still there, it's so hard to move on. Yes. And I think that is something that I have to be careful with as well in my new relationship, is there's that the fact that we're going to run a business together is not going to be a full break for a while. Yeah. Right.
And you share kids.
And we share kids. And that's a great point. I was going to say, like, there is really no way to, like, you know, fully separate. Like, Gabby's going to get married at some point in time in the future. I would hope that I'm walking her down the aisle. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mateo's going to graduate. We're going to be at the graduation together. You know, like stuff like that. Actually, 2 weekends from now on the 18th, Julie and I are godparents, and we're going to be baptizing a kid, and we're going to be together. Right.
See, I love that you two have kind of navigated the ways of co-parenting and kind of getting along, because I know with my ex, like we don't communicate at all. Yeah. There's just, it's so much turmoil. You know, like you said, you kind of stepped out and kind of, you were done with it, but I drug it out for far too long. And that was my fault. Right. I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to show it out there, but he did have an affair. Caught him terrible. You know, he fell in love with a coworker. It was hell for me.
It's always the coworker.
Damn you. But we separated for a little bit, and it was, you know, one of those like, I'll do anything, I'll change, I'll do this, I'll do that, blah, 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 whatever. Well, we were married, so I was like, fine, like let's give us another shot. But for 6 years, 6 years,
After.
yes, sir.
Wow, okay.
6 years, I held on and I fought. And I fought so hard to try to change things and keep the relationship alive. But for 6 years, I didn't tell this man I loved him. I didn't love him. I wasn't in love with him anymore.
Yeah.
I loved him as a person, as the father of my children, but I was not in love.
Yeah.
You know, and I was literally, I tell everyone this, I wasn't living, I was surviving.
Yeah.
And that fucked with me mentally too. Because here I'm living with this man. I have 2 kids with him. Trying to figure that out. And then one day, my mom, she told me, when it's over, you just know. And I was like, that makes no sense. Well, sure, shit. I woke up one day and I just hit a wall and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I looked at him and I said, I want nothing to do with you. And that's when I knew I waited too long, because then I ended up hating him, you know, for what you did, making me go through all that, knowing what I've been through in the past. Like it was hell for me. And so he did try to change things and like, let's work on it. Let's go to counseling. Let's do this and let's do that. And I was like, nah, I'm good. Like I don't care to. He left, he went to go live with mom and he took me off of everything.
Yeah.
You know, I was legit left with nothing. At the time, it was during COVID. I was running a business. I was running a daycare, an in-home daycare. At that time, the business wasn't doing well because of COVID. That was hell. So I had to shut the doors. And so when he left, he took his name off, or taking my name off of everything. He just left with nothing. And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? So that was a struggle for me, because I'm like, I have to pick up these pieces. I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
And he just left.
And he's the dad of 3 kids?
So the oldest, no.
Okay.
The oldest was a high school sweetheart. He's a great father. I can't clown him for anything, because he's a great father. He's always been very financially available for her. Nothing negative to say about that man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's the 2 younger ones. Okay. So yeah, I had to figure it out. And I did. I went back to school. I started my career now, and I've never been happier.
That's right.
With how I've navigated. And I tell my oldest too, like I said, she's my best friend. I've told her, I said, to know that I went from living with a man who I was just miserable with, to finally saying, like, I'm done. Here's the papers. I need out. To being left with nothing. Zero money in my bank account. I had the house. I paid off his car when I was running my business.
Yeah.
I was left with nothing.
When you guys separated, you didn't have to split all the assets?
Well, no. So no. The house that we live in is my parents' house.
Got it.
When they moved, we took it over. So I essentially got to stay in it. But that leaves me with everything.
Yeah.
You know, all the bills and all that fun stuff. And I was telling her, I said, I made it.
Yeah.
Here I am, 37 years old, divorced with 3 kids. But yet I have a house. I just bought my own car. My kids need or go without, like, they have everything they've ever wanted. Yeah. So I did that. And I'm proud of that, because I struggled so hard mentally trying to figure out, what the fuck am I going to do? Yeah. I have to survive, and I have to take care of these kids, and I'm going to figure it out. And I know he had said, you're going to be nothing without me.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's fine. If that's what you want to believe, that's fine. But guess what? I made it.
You suck, fucker.
I made it. And I'm so happy. And everyone's like, you know, I don't understand how you're still single and blah, blah, blah. I choose to be single.
Yeah, you want your freedom.
I choose. So just like you, I did after the divorce, I was dating somebody. I was. And to me, I feel like, as shitty as this is going to sound, it was a crutch. You know, it was someone who made me feel so good after feeling so shitty. And him and I are still friends to this day. We're still friends, and I care a lot about him, but I wouldn't ever want to be in a relationship again, because he's got his own turmoil that he's got to deal with. But it was fun. I mean, it was nice to finally feel like that again. You know, feel loved and feel wanted, and to feel all the feels,
Yeah.
So it was nice. And I think for me as a friend, I did, when I found out you were dating, it worried me a second because I'm like, dude, is this someone that he's just.
Yeah. Jumping from one relationship to
Yeah,
another.
that
For sure.
scared me.
Yeah,
But then I see how really like authentic it is. No pun intended with the podcast.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. And like I
Yeah.
said, I love that for you because I know I strive to find that one day. And I hope that I can share life with someone again. And that fact that you found it and it's like thriving, I love that for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of friends, and I'll kind of speak for myself, but also maybe in response to like, you just really shared a lot. I think when you are separating from somebody, or because I really want to make sure that this is overall, like if you're dealing with a grief of some kind, a lot of friends are going, like whenever you find something that's getting you out of that grief, whether it's a relationship, a new hobby, a new job, a getaway, a vacation, maybe you're spending money more freely, maybe it's alcohol. I don't know. People will pick vices to come out of. People will find something coming out of grief or a challenging situation or a stressful situation, whatever it is. And I'm picking this up from the book that I'm reading, by the way. So I'm sharing some of this from my new knowledge. But people will find vices or people to try to pull them out of that, right? And so relationships, especially if you're coming out of a divorce, is very challenging to navigate. And that was one thing that I wanted to be very careful with. And I shared a lot of that with Maria as like we navigated through it. Because not only did we start a relationship, but then she also had to move 3,000 miles away. So it was like, but I actually think that was a huge benefit to us. So I think what people are seeing is a lot of what her and I have to do is we have to over communicate and we have to share with each other so much that it's kind of hard for us. And then when we are spending time with together, it has to be very intentional time. Yeah. Like we have to make sure like that time is very segmented.
It's
important. Know what I mean? So I think, family and friends will be a little standoffish. And I think for me, like coming out of it, like yourself, a lot of my other family and friends were very standoffish, like, oh, what's happening?
Yeah.
And I was lucky, maybe not lucky is the wrong word. I think I was smart enough to share that with her beforehand. I said, hey, I got to be honest with you. My family is going to be going through a lot right now because this was a 15-year relationship that has now ended and they've seen only us in this little window, right? Like they've been like peeking through the glass and it's like, oh, perfect marriage, everything's perfect. And a lot of that is the facade that I put on, not necessarily Julie. And so I had to share with her and say, listen, my family might not be 100% open to you yet. My friends, it's complicated because I don't have a big group of friends. Right. And the ones that I do are her friends. You know what I mean? And so it's going to be challenging. And what I told her is this year, why don't we focus on building our relationship?
Perfect. Keep
it kind of tight. Who cares what we share? Like ultimately I was like, I don't really care what people see. Right. And a lot of people, again, they're not liking it. They're not commenting on it. Now they are because time has passed, right? Right. Now we're going into month 5. Like people are seeing what's happening. They're picking up on, okay, this wasn't just like flavor of the week type of thing. Like this is a real relationship.
Yeah.
But I said, let's focus on us. And also when you feel comfortable, let's focus on your family and friends.
Okay.
Because she also, right before me, was in a 5-year relationship.
Oh, wow.
It was also long distance, part of it.
Okay.
Part of it. So, and they were separated for, I don't know, maybe a year or something. So
she had longer time to like, okay, got it.
For her to, I'm not just like the next, I think I am the next boyfriend, but she dated, in between that time. Yeah. So, I think that allowed us to kind of create a little bit of like a plan for our relationship of like, let's go into this very intentional for you and I first. And let's share what we feel comfortable sharing, but understand more than likely most of your family and friends are going to be very accepting up front.
Right.
And it's going to take a little bit more time from my family and friends. And I think now my family and friends are really starting to come around. She's met my mom. She met one of my cousins.
Your mom's a great woman.
Yeah. We've all gone to, dinner, and my mom was a little hard on her, I think, during the dinner, not 100%. She wasn't like really, there, but me and my mom just had dinner last night, and my mom was like, hey, listen, tell Maria, like, I would love to spend more time with her. Like when she comes back out, I need to, now my mom is feeling it, right, where she needs to be a little bit more accepting. My friends, I think they're still a little, they're kind of like teetering.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard for them. They're in an awkward position to some degree, but I think they're giving it time as well because they don't want to interject.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's easy if you're in a new relationship and all of a sudden your friends are accepting. It's actually easier to make it seem like the relationship is successful.
Right.
So I think my friends are giving me my space in that aspect.
Okay, good.
And I'm okay with it.
Well, that's funny because you're having that where your friends weren't very accepting. Where my friends, when I went through the divorce, they're like, about damn time.
Thank God.
Yeah, they're like, why did you wait so long? And I'm like, honestly, it was just financially easier. And as shitty as that sounds, it's the truth because I knew mentally, financially, physically, all the aspects, I wasn't ready. You know, and I knew I had to be ready and listen to my mom's words. When you're ready and you know, you'll know. And so I just wasn't ready. Yeah. And then I finally just was like, all right, I'm doing this. I'm going to have to figure it out. Fucked with my mental health for quite some time. Yeah. But I did it. And I think what really helped me in navigating the divorce, I'm still going through it 3 years later. And it's been, I don't know what journey you're on as far as divorce, but it's cost me like $15,000 in attorney fees. And it's still counting. He refuses to sign. Yeah. And I don't know why. He has a girlfriend. Like, leave me alone. Yeah. But anyways.
Well, that's also funny, though, because I feel like he's only hurting himself to some degree because, like, you know, I mean, I think at least in a divorce, like, the problem is when people don't agree with it. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So, but he didn't agree with it at the time. But like you said, he's moved on and he has a new girlfriend. Like, why wouldn't you agree to it now?
Right. So has Julie met Maria? Have they met?
They haven't met.
Is you gonna do that? Is that gonna be?
I'm sure eventually they will. I have no doubt that they will. You know, I mean, I'm again intentional with my relationship with Maria, so like I look at it as like long term. I mean, you know, we've talked about everything from marriage, kids, careers.
She wants kids.
Yeah.
And you want more kids?
I'm open to it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm open to it. The thing is, I had a vasectomy. So,
ay, Dios mío.
So same thing. We would have to be very intentional about everything, but we have 100% talked about it. Julie has asked me that too. She's like, what does she know? She actually asked, that was one of the questions she asked me in like January. She was just like, does she know? I was like, she knows everything. You know what I mean? Maria knows everything. Everybody knows everything. So just so we're clear on this. But yeah, I think with the divorce aspect, so Julie actually has filed already. And it was like a weird thing that actually happened recently where like I went to a lawyer to like just ask for the information. And then I came to Julie and said, hey, I did talk to a lawyer. This is what they're suggesting. My mind was we were going to do that together.
She's on that. Fuck you. I'm doing this.
She was on I'm taking care of this.
Got it.
But, you know, look, like I pay for everything. I'm still paying for everything. I pay for all the living expenses. We have a joint bank account. She spends as she needs to. She's taking trips. I haven't cut anything off. I do have my own bank account now. She has her own bank account now. Money that's coming in is going into that bank account, but I'm fully ready that when we get the divorce, everything that's in my new bank account gets split.
It's going to be so crazy, dude. I'm not looking forward to that for you.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
I know. I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
But I don't know as a friend.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're fully aware of how messy it can get.
Yeah, unfortunately, I felt that a little bit already, just in the fact that she went and did it.
I'm talking about assets. Like you have to split everything.
I was willing to originally give her everything. So initially,
I didn't ask for anything in the divorce. I didn't want anything. Just leave me alone.
Yeah. Well, so originally the plan, and now I'm really sharing because this is like real behind the scenes stuff.
Ooh.
But originally, what I was planning was actually to give her all the assets.
Okay.
Okay, so her car is paid off. It is in my name, but it's her Jeep. Like it was never my Jeep. Yeah, I didn't. So
you bought it for her.
I bought it for her, so it's her Jeep. So everything in the house, everything. Like I literally left, and I bought, new furniture for my apartment, and everything else in the house. I said it's yours. I'm not gonna. Obviously there's sentimental things that I have taken,
right.
Pictures of the kids,
right.
But I didn't take like the pool table, the couches. I wasn't like half the bed is mine, or like I think I'm weirdly enough, and maybe I'm fortunate in this aspect, but I don't really care about things like that. I don't care about I don't care about splitting it. I don't care about giving her stuff. To me that's not what the point of the divorce was. The point of the divorce was my mental health. I was not happy, and I was doing things behind her back that were inappropriate. It wasn't fair to her. And at the end of the day, it wasn't good for me. Clearly, I was looking for love in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And in order for me to be able to be and I was lying to people. Like that was the main thing. Like for me, I was being so fake. And, you know, and I've said this before, I could be in a room full of people that loved me and feel absolutely alone. You know, Christmas, it was crazy to like look around. It's like all Julie's family and a couple friends. And I'm literally just watching all of them be so happy. And they're just like, you know, and it's in I say our home, but now, you know,
Yeah, but it is.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm just watching everybody. I was like, I could care less that I'm here.
That's wild.
I don't even care that I'm here.
And that's how you know, like you were done.
I knew it. And nobody picked up on it, which was the worst part, which made me feel even worse. That was the worst part about it, was like nobody noticed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So as far as like the house, the assets, everything, I think at least at this point, what we've settled on is that we are legitimately going to sell the house, sell everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We don't actually have a lot of debt
Okay.
as far as like, you know, all kinds of other things. I mean, it's literally the mortgage, the solar, and my car.
Got it.
So when we sell the house, legitimately what will happen is both of us will have zero debt. Her car's paid off, so she'll get that. My car's not paid off, so they'll have to pay that off in the process, so it's equal. And then we would split everything, including everything that's in my bank account or our bank account. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And that's that. And I know like the goal would be for both of us to have 50-50 physical and legal custody. And her and I have talked about that. Mateo could live with me for 1 week, live with her for another week, whether she moves in with her mom or gets her own apartment or own house or whatever. That's the plan. If I have to pay more for alimony, child support, spousal support, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I'm not.
How long are you guys married?
7 years. Together for 15.
But married for 7?
Married for 7. For sure, I'm going to be paying her, you know.
Not a lot. Alimony, not a lot. It's only half the time you're married.
Yeah.
Unless you're married 10 years or more, and then it's for life.
Yeah. Whoops. Oh, man. 3 more.
I waited for the 10-year mark and then filed. It's so bad, I know. But you know what? So as an outsider looking in, I think, this is just me speaking, I think you stayed for so long because she really supported you in many lows in your life.
Early lows.
Right, for sure. So I think that's probably why you felt like, I need to stay with this woman. Like,
yeah, I agree.
She's been with me through the drug, through the alcohol, through losing your sister. Like, she was your skin removed. Like, she went through all those stages with you, you know? And I feel like me as a friend and just seeing you guys, I think it was just more of like, I'm staying with this woman because she held me down for so long.
Yeah.
But then you realize, like, she held me down. Yeah, it was great, but I'm not in love anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when you're like,
yeah, and I think the more recent ones, like my sister's passing, that wasn't necessarily her fault. I think I think I put on a very big front with that. I really put it out there, like, hey, I'm going to be the support system, and I did not realize how it was going to impact me like a month or so later. Like I was strong during the process, and then life moves on, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh no, like grief came after. Like versus me going through it with everyone, I was like, oh, I'm going to be strong for everybody. And then it hit me after. But I do think it's those moments of grief through your life that allow you to eventually get strong.
Yeah.
And,
for sure.
And have that ability to move forward. And I post this like every week. Some weeks I'm better than others. I'll go like 2 weeks with like not posting it, but I still do it. But I literally have a calendar that's my life in weeks. And it's this big, giant white calendar with all these boxes of literally every single, it's 52 boxes across, and it goes almost 80 down. So it's literally thousands of boxes, tens of thousands of boxes of every week in my life. And I posted it this last Friday, and literally I was just like, you could wake up one day. Everyone has the ability to wake up one day and start fresh. It doesn't matter. And get it. I get it. It's hard. A lot of times people don't move on because of money. Yeah. A lot of times people don't move on because they feel like they owe somebody, right? Like, oh, that person was with me through this or that or this or that. The reality is we all have this lifespan, and we have no idea. We all know how long it could be.
Right.
But none of us know how long it's going to be. And it could be a diagnosis that you can't, a cancer diagnosis or some type of illness.
Yep.
It could be a car accident. It could be you lived a full life.
Yeah.
But God, like, could you imagine living I'm more scared of living a full life and half of it had been through something I didn't want to be. Cause that was the other thing. I looked at it and was like, and I know we're talking a lot about relationships, but this does go into mental health. I looked at it as, could I be in this relationship for 5 more years? Yes. Could I be in this relationship for 10 more years? Probably not.
Yeah, no.
Can I be in this for 15 more years? Definitely not. Okay, well, I'm 35. So 15 more years, I'm 50. What about the other 30 potential years?
That's exactly where I was at too. That's when I think I hit the wall, and I was like, I can't stay in a relationship where I'm not happy and I know that I'm miserable and I can't see a future. I can't see me progressing or going any further if my life, my career, anything.
Yeah.
Stuck in a rut in this little bubble that I've created. And I'm like, I have to step out of this comfort zone and I have to live.
Yeah.
And I think going back to like suicide and mental health and stuff like that, I think what triggered it for me too was my brother, knowing he only had 17 years of life.
Yeah.
And he had a semi-normal, great life, but that last year of his life, he struggled. He struggled mentally. He had a girlfriend that really fucked with his mental health so bad that he essentially took his life over it, And then my mom lost her dad to suicide as well. So I realized, like, life is too short, man. Like, you can't stay in a relationship because you're comfortable. Yeah. You have to venture out and you have to go through those rough spots in life to get to where you're at today. Yeah. And it's been fun to say the least, but I think we survived. We're okay. And we're out there living.
I mean, it's got, it is one of those things. Like I do think, so you obviously lost your brother. He was 17, you were 21. I lost Shane. He was 18. I was 17. I think those early losses, losing someone so young, whoever they are,
right,
friend, boyfriend, brother, whatever, like it gives you this special perspective on life that I don't think many other people get. And in my opinion, it's a strength that you possess, I possess, and other people who've had that same type of grief possess, where they look at things differently, through a different lens. Because most people experience death and it's like their grandma,
right? They're older,
or there's a cause to it, right? Like a like legitimately like an illness that comes around. It's like, oh fuck, they died of cancer, like that sucks. But then but it's like when someone takes their own life, or when it's taken from them so suddenly, it really gives everybody that's in that environment like a very different perspective.
And it's harder to grieve, I think. Yeah. When it's a sudden death.
There's
like
a lot of
that.
Questions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's hard. And me being 21 at the time, and he was my best friend. Yeah. Like we did everything together. And he passed away July 5th, July 4th. Like we spent the entire day together. Yeah. I had no idea that he would go home that night and take his life. I had no idea.
So he had planned.
Oh yeah. I think, so that's another thing too that I like to talk about is people are always like, oh, suicide, like it's just a sudden thing. No, like this is something that they have planned and they've probably talked about it. They've maybe hinted and you just weren't catching on to it. And once they have that mindset of like, I'm going to take my life, that never leaves them. Yeah. And that can haunt them for the rest of their lives. Yeah. And so I think my brother being young, he felt the only way my family or friends or whoever's around me is going to be happy is if I'm gone, which is the complete opposite. And so I'll admit it, I was pissed. I went through those waves of being sad because I lost my best friend, my brother's gone, to being fucking pissed. Why would you do this? Why would you do this to our parents? Like, how could you leave like this?
Phase 3 of 5. Anger.
I love that so much. But I think I went through those waves of emotions. And then after he passed, we found out his girlfriend was pregnant.
Oh, wow. I never knew that.
So I have a niece.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. And she looks just like him. It's a beautiful trip. She looks just like him. That's a whole different topic. I don't know if we want to dive into because
I'm guessing it's a little tough.
It's turmoil. Having her is a blessing. It's great. but having her mother still around is a little difficult.
Yeah.
Just because she's essentially the reason why my brother's not here. And I hate to say that. I really do. But that's something she has to live with for the rest of her life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, my parents too. Like, that's hard for them. Losing a son that way.
Yeah.
I think that's what kills me too. And I was more pissed at my brother. Like, my dad found him.
Yeah.
You know, and my mom had to cut him down.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
I could never. And then to know that my parents have navigated that and they're still together and they're still like thriving, where a lot of relationships would have probably failed after that.
Yeah.
You know, losing a son in that way.
Just losing a child.
Yeah.
In general.
Right.
Is such a like fuck with your mental health and grief, but then to just have those unanswered questions and, you know, certain things. And I'm going to I'll just share this because, and I don't know if you've had a similar experience. I think it's very important for us, if we're talking about this, to talk about if we've ever experienced thoughts of, you know, suicide or mental health. But one of the things for me that I experienced, and I've shared this every year I share about my, my like anniversary of being clean, is there's like a paragraph and I talk about how it happened and what happened. And one of the things I talk about is like, you know, I literally thought about like my life in general, like, should I take it? You know, because when you're going through a detox, you know, at the end of the day, like, you're already in a really bad mental stage because the drugs fuck with you and make you think things that aren't really true. And you sometimes just like, you're having all these different ideas and some of them are true and some of them aren't, and some of them are self-induced, and it's like a rabbit hole you just keep going through. But then when you're also trying to get clean, well, now you have all this regret and pity, and you start to realize you're probably not positioned to fully take care of yourself. And so now you're a burden. And that was one of the things. And I know that's a big thing in suicide, is the person feels like they're a burden to somebody. And so I felt a lot of burden, like especially day 2, day 3. And I was like, I should just fucking put the needle in, overdose now, just be done with it.
I don't like that.
Now I didn't, obviously, right? And I got through that and I was clean. Well, fast forward about 6-7 months, I started dating again. I was actually dating my high school sweetheart, and then we got engaged, and then the engagement turned sour and we broke up.
Oh God.
So here I am, 10-ish months clean, and I'm back at my apartment, and I'm like just looking around at my life, and I was like, I'm a burden, you know? I'm a burden. Like, I should relapse. I should do this. And that first year is very, very tough for everybody. So I went as far as writing the letter, right? I went as far as writing the letter, and I went as far as taking a full bottle of ibuprofen and drank 3 bottles of Robitussin DM.
Oh my God, Joe.
And was done. Like I was done. And I don't know, maybe like 10, 15 minutes, not a long time, goes by. And a friend tries to call me. And I was like, oh. And then like, I just start thinking. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this? I'm not, people love me. Like,
yes,
people do love me. People do care about me. My mom or somebody's going to read this fucking letter. Like, oh my, I immediately have regret, like God. big regret, right? Well, I've already ingested.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Ton. So I had to call the suicide hotline. They then put me over to poison control, and they basically walk you through what you need to do. So I had to throw up, right? Go in the bathroom, throw up as much as I can. What probably actually helped was the fact that I did pills with Robitussin, because it's all liquid. So I threw up a lot of the pills, a lot of the Robitussin. Then they were like, do you have, first of all, they had already called 911. They had already dispatched, an ambulance. I left the house because I was like, fuck this.
God, did you really?
I left the house. So I was like, fuck this. So then I ended up going to a 7-Eleven. They told me to get orange juice. I'm on the phone with them the whole time.
Oh my God.
So then I chugged all this orange juice. The paramedic showed up to my house. I wasn't there. I wouldn't tell them where I was at. I was so fucking embarrassed. I was like, fuck this. Like, I'm not, like, my friends, you know what I mean? Like, everyone, they're all going to find out about this. So I down the orange juice, and then same thing, throw it up, because the orange juice, I guess, has it dilutes or has the acidic acid in it. So keynote for anybody listening.
But please don't ever do this.
Please don't do it. But it actually has a counteract for the ibuprofen. Now, by the way, ibuprofen would have been the most painful, absolutely most painful way to go. It shuts down your liver while you're still awake.
Yep, it messes with your whole.
Which is why I took the Robitussin and DM, is because the goal was to pass out and then let the ibuprofen destroy my liver.
You really thought about this.
I really did. Yeah. No,
That's
I really
scary.
did. Yeah. And to your point, you know, you plan it. Like, to your point, you plan it.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the first time I've ever shared it. One of my friends knows. I talked to him about it.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Authentic.
Yeah.
One of my friends knows about it because he was going through something similar, and I decided to share it with him. I actually kept the note for many, many years, and I would read it from time to time when I was down. And I recommended that to him. And then as part of the counseling that I went through, they actually told me, like, you need to destroy it.
Yeah.
It's past.
Yep.
It is not who you are. You don't think that way anymore. You've recovered from so many things. And mind you, all this happened during that period of time where, like, it was just loss after loss after loss. And so, like, Shane had passed away in 2006. 2006. 2007, I had survived 2 overdoses. And this happened 10 months later. Now, I made it through, but my second overdose would have been exactly 14 months after Shane's passing. The date, that was what helped me get through and get clean, was I went back and I circled the calendar. He passed away August 14th. My second overdose was October 14th, 14 months later. And then here I was, like, trying to make this decision for myself. And I was just like, dude, like, remember what his parents went through?
Yeah. Oh.
You're about to fucking do this to your family and your friends. And, like, that was, like, what got me through it. And then unfortunately, 14 months after what was my overdose, my other best friend passed away. And it was like 14 months, 14 months, 14 months. His was December 20. His wasn't to the day, though. His was like, but it was 14 months later. December of, I think, 2008. And I was just like, you know, Julie and I had just started dating at that period of time. Like, maybe, like, we were like a month in or something.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to go to, like, the funeral with me and stuff. And I was just, like, remembering, like, just, like, thinking, like, I'm like, at what point in time in my life am I not going to be in pain? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was just like 14 months. And I was just sitting there like, why me? Like, why do I, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's actually part of the conversation that I had with Maria when I shared with her a lot of this stuff and some more stuff from my childhood that I'm honestly really not ready to share. But, like, at some point in time, you start asking yourself, like, why are you dealing with, why? Like, why?
It's always that why.
Well, I've come to the conclusion that, and, you know, people can believe in God however they want,
right?
You know, whatever your God is. But what I truly believe is that our lives are mapped out for us. We get to make choices along the way.
Okay.
But our lives are mapped out. There's a roadmap for us that God's created. And I realized that maybe my mission is through pain, that I could get through it because I'm strong enough to, and I can endure it. And then I get to give people perspective. And so when I pray, and I do it every day, like before a meal, I pray, but I always ask for the same thing. I just ask for God to help me along the way through the path that He's designed. But on that path, I just ask for strength to help people who cannot help themselves.
I love it.
And so, again, whether you're religious or not religious, I think every single one of us can take pain that we've endured, and you could help somebody. And as soon as you help that one person, that pain burden gets a little lighter.
Right.
Because now 2 people are sharing in it. You're sharing, and you're taking a little bit of their pain off, because they've shared it with you. You're sharing your pain. They're taking a little bit of the load off. And so I think it just goes back to conversation and being vulnerable and being strong enough to tell people what you're going through.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not okay.
Right.
I need help. I want to talk about it.
So I don't know how much time we have left.
Oh, you're good.
Okay.
We're
But
good.
I do want to touch on mental health as far as like friends and relationships. So right now, I'm not a huge religious person. I'm the holy,
You're good.
whatever, it's the higher power, whatever, the universe, however it works.
Might be aliens. Nobody
I
knows.
don't fucking know. But I always say like the universe works in mysterious ways where last year I was working at an intermediate school and I met some amazing people. And I was like, you know what? I wish I could just stay here. Like, that'd be great. Because with my profession, they'll move me where I'm needed as far as behavior wise, with the kids, wherever I'm needed. And so I was like, dang, I'd really love to stay here. And so they had actually switched me to another junior high. And I was like, damn, that sucks. The day before I was supposed to start, they're like, hey, you're going back. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, I get to go back to where I wanted to be. And I show up and it's a new teacher. She's younger than I am. I think sorry, Raquel, I don't remember how old you are. 29 maybe? I don't remember. But I met her and we instantly clicked to where, as shitty as it sounds, I don't get along with females very well.
You're an alpha female. That's why.
I'm sorry. I don't. But I met her and I was like, dude, she's a whole vibe. Like, I love her. She started struggling with mental health and she has experienced a lot of traumatic events in her life as well as like growing up. Her childhood was kind of rough. She lost a boyfriend. He actually was drinking and driving and so he passed away. And so she went through that. So she's dealing with a lot of mental health issues herself. It recently just got worse to where I was at work and she was teaching and I'm like, she's not okay. Like she could just see it on her. And I joke about it, but it's not funny. I was like, dude, your manic is showing.
Yeah.
And she was like, how do you know? And I was like, I can see it. I know what it looks like because I've dealt with it personally. So I was like, it's showing. And she was like, you're right. You're absolutely right. And she went and she's seeking help and she's doing it for herself. And I think for her, it was hard, at first to be like, damn, I need this.
Yeah.
And so she's not going to be with us for the last 2 weeks of school. And that to me is fucking me up, mentally, because I'm like, dude, like I know she needs it, but me selfishly is like, I don't want you to go. But I think for me, that was when my past trauma kicked in. And I'm like, fuck, I can't lose another person to suicide. Like, I just can't. This is another person that I care so much about. I can't lose her too. Yeah. So that's when I was like, we got to fix this. What can I do to help you? And she just called me one day crying and I'm like, fuck, this is it. Yeah. Like, what am I going to do? And she shared something with me that I'm not comfortable sharing, but I was like, we're going to fix this and we're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You have me. You have all of us at school. Like, we'll get through this. And the fact that she reached out and she's working on herself is huge because a lot of people, sometimes they're afraid to ask for help and it's out there, and then I started dating someone whose mental health was shit. And in that process, I realized trying to fix him, I was hurting myself. Yeah. And that was a lot. That was a lot on me because I'm like trying to navigate like him and what he's going through. But then I'm like, I can't. I was depleted. Yeah. I had a full tank when we started and now I'm like, I got nothing left to give.
He's a wet blanket, just puts out the flame.
Dude, it was bad. Like, I didn't realize it to the extent, until it was over. And I look back and I'm like, no, that was not healthy at all. And so I reached out to my friend and I was talking to her about it and she was like, yeah, that sounds terrible. I was like, it kind of was. So
I think I want to kind of like touch back on the burden. That's the other thing that's like interesting and like, by the way, what is kind of interesting, obviously I shared a very sensitive subject and topic about myself. since that day, I never even thought, like, I don't think about it like, oh my God, like I had like a suicidal attempt. Like
Crazy.
I don't think of it like that
Yeah.
because I think I was so naive and so stupid in that moment. I was just so young. You know what I mean? I wasn't like maturity wise, like I haven't thought about that shit for years, like years. And I don't even like crutch on it. But burden is the feeling that I was experiencing at that time. And so that's what I monitor and watch. You know, when I feel like I'm a burden to people, that's usually when I'm in a lull and I have to kind of like share that a little bit with them. Like, hey, listen, like if I'm telling you too much, fine. Like, and most of the time my circle is so tight that people are like, you're fucking fine. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that is actually an important piece. It's like, if you are with somebody or you're a friend to somebody or you're an acquaintance and somebody is sharing some very sensitive things and you aren't, either you're not equipped to it or they really are going to be a burden to you, you really do have to kind of let them go to a different way. You can't take it upon yourself to have the responsibility to try to fix that person.
Right.
Because the reality is that person is to some degree a burden and they are going to need someone to lean on. And if they lean on the wrong person and that person does not assist them, then they are going to have that feeling even more because now now they feel bad that they're leaning on someone and depleting that person. And so that feeling of being a burden or depression or whatever it is grows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I'm more selective of my friends and the people I have around me because I'm like, I know, just like all of us, I'm going to need help someday.
Yeah.
I usually am the person helping other people at this stage of my life, which is amazing. But I do know that when I need help, it's going to be a lot heavier than most people's burdens.
Right.
And so I need stronger people in my circle or people who are aware of how I am and my triggers and the things that I need help with, the things that bring me down. I need them to kind of know all of it up front.
Right.
So they know the responsibility that they're taking by being my friend, essentially. You know what I mean? Or caring about me. Like if you're going to care about me, here's how heavy it is. You know what I mean?
I agree. Because I know I personally internalize a lot. You know, so when I have people who are struggling with mental health and they come to me because they know maybe, oh, she's been through it, she's got some good ideas or whatever it so be. But I do internalize a lot. And then I didn't realize that until this relationship when I was like, fuck, like I don't know what to do. Like I can't help this person anymore.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what am I going to do? Like I gotta fix him. But like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
You know,
responsibility.
I can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves.
Yeah.
In that sense, you know? So me internalizing things and like trying to navigate it and get rid of it myself, I'm like reaching out to friends, like you said, someone who I knew isn't going to judge me on it.
Yeah.
You know, and so having a good support system has been huge and I love that.
Yeah.
But it's been hard also to share, like you said, share certain things because you don't want to put too much on them.
Yeah.
So I've learned that that's my problem. Like I need to work within myself is asking for help. Sometimes I don't. You know, I'm like, no, I can do it myself. I'm good.
Yeah.
I got this. But no, I'm not. Like I need to learn I have to ask for help. And it's okay to ask for help. Because as a mom and a single mom of 3, I'm like, no, I can do this all by myself. I've been through worse. But it's like, bitch, no. Like you need help and you need to ask for help.
Yeah. It's also stressful a little bit like when you share something with somebody because you don't know, you trust everybody that you share it with clearly, but you really don't know who they're going to share it with. And then there's sometimes a little bit of that aftermath. And this is not a bad thing. I mean, we talked through this, but one of the things that I'm not comfortable sharing here that I shared with Maria, like she had kind of shared parts of it that I've shared openly parts of it. And so she shared that openly with certain people, but like there's more to the story and she knows the more to the story. And so like that was part of the conversation I had with her. I was like, hey, like I know I shared this with you in confidence and like now I've kind of put it on the podcast. And so there's a little bit of this, but you also know there's more behind that. So I don't want the people you're sharing it with to actually judge me because they're only getting a piece of the pie.
Oh shit. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like I ultimately, I do want to be very authentic to who I am as a person, but there are certain things that are so private that and or are only part of the story that if you share that, people will judge you because they don't know the full other story. And it's tough to navigate that because, like, again, on here, I'm sharing certain, like, you're sharing 80% or 90% of certain things, but there's this other 10 or 20% that people don't know.
Yeah.
And it really does make a difference on the full story for
Yeah.
people not to judge you. So I had to feel comfortable enough with her to tell her that, like, hey, listen, I know that you're sharing this with these people, but there's more to that story. And so they're going to not know that. And so they might end up judging me. And I just want you to be clear, like, you to understand that it makes me uncomfortable now, because when I'm in a room with them, I know that they only know part of the story, which puts me in an awkward position to either have to tell them the full story, which I don't know that I want to.
Right.
It's really not a big deal, but it could be, right? So I'm like, I don't know if I want to tell them the full story.
Yeah.
You put me in that awkward position of either them thinking of me a certain way but it's also the weird thing of who gives a fuck, like, what they think of me. You know what I mean? So it's always challenging to navigate what to share with people, when to share it with them. And so, and ultimately we need to share in order to heal on certain things.
Right.
So
and that's huge.
It's such a delicate line to walk through. And I think that's why, I am a big proponent in people going and seeking professional help, because that person is not going to judge you. That is literally their job, is to intake the information and help you process it. And
that always trips me out, like therapists and counselors. It's like, I wonder if they internalize any of that too,
Oh, absolutely.
They go home and they're like, fuck, I just had this session and they talked about this, and like, So does a counselor seek a counselor?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, you think about like police officers or people with PTSD and like, losses that they have. It's like, they go and share it with somebody. It's such a horrible story. And then that person, how you hear the story and now you're seeing a person who's experienced it.
Yeah.
How, as a human being, how do you not pick off a piece of that energy and take it with you somewhere? So I'm sure they're taught and trained how to, I guess, walk out the door and not take it with them.
Yeah, I'd like to know. That's a trip. But I know, like, I know, like, AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, they have like these, they call suicide prevention walks. And so after I lost my brother, I dove headfirst into like learning all about suicide. They have a walk, and let me just tell you, that was the first time I realized that suicide is not taboo.
Yeah.
It's not a touchy subject. Let's talk about it. Yeah. It happens. Yeah. And I walked in, and I think it was at Mouse Square Park. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I'm looking around, and there's thousands of people who have shared the same experience I have. And I know for me, that meant so much to me. So being around someone who has gone through maybe the same thing you've gone through, I know that helps. And that's huge for me. So even talking to you, like, you may have not witnessed or been a survivor of suicide, but you've lost friends and you've lost family. Yeah. And suddenly. And so to you and to me, it's a big deal. Yeah. So just talking to you, it helps too, because I'm like, dude, he knows how it feels, and it's a shitty feeling. But I know helping or being with people who have been through it has really helped me. Yeah.
Well, and I think, again, I'll share the book that it's called 828, and I don't have the author's name right in front of me, but I'll definitely tag it in when I share it, and I'm going to send you a copy of it. But it's actually been interesting because, like, I started reading this book, and like a lot of it is about grief and different types of grief. And she actually talks about losing she had a stillborn, or she lost her baby. She had to bear the baby all the way through, and then the baby passed like 3 days after, and then she had a miscarriage, so she got pregnant, got to like a certain stage, and then lost that baby, and she talks about that. But then she talks about how that grief could be related to so many other things, right? And so I do think, like, somewhat researching or being an active participant in learning and trying to find different ways to manage through things are important, because Gosh, I just shared. I haven't even thought about that. Honestly, I haven't thought about it since probably like the day that it happened and like
Wow.
maybe a couple times after, but I just was like, fuck this. I just tried to progress my life. And things happened after that. I became a father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I became a business professional. Like so many things happened that I then had purpose. So I didn't feel like I was a burden anymore. And I think that's why I processed the grief out. You know what I mean? And every so often those things will come back up, but a lot of times, most of the things that I've gotten past,
Yeah.
most of the grief I've experienced, once you're past it, it's just there,
Right.
but it's helping you
It's not eating
process.
you away,
It's almost
yeah.
helping you process new grief as it comes.
Correct.
And so I do feel like, continuing education, however you can, is going to be the best way. And talking to a professional or sharing with friends your experiences, I can almost guarantee every single person, if they were just to ask their friend, what's the biggest grief that you've had in your entire life? You'd be surprised what people will share.
It's so true.
And then you could process it together, right? And that might be weird bar talk or weird barbecue talk or weird whatever. But the reality is everyone has it. Just like we're all fighting the same clock. Everybody has had some type of grief in their life.
Yep. And I know a lot that's helped me is just talking about it. As scary as it is and as sensitive as the subject is, just talking about it has helped. Like after he passed, it was a couple years after, but I went and I spoke at high schools. And that alone was fucking scary, mind you.
Yeah.
To have to be vulnerable to a bunch of teenagers who are the same age as my brother who had committed suicide. But I hate that too. I hate saying committed suicide.
Yeah.
You don't commit. But anyways, we're not going to talk about it. That was scary.
Yeah.
But it helped. It really did, because you're looking out and you see all these teens. You're like, fuck, if I could just help one of them who's actually feeling whatever my brother was feeling or what I'm feeling right now, and they go home and they think about taking their life, I hope they think twice.
Yeah.
Because they just heard my words and they just heard what I went through. Yeah. And I really hope that helps. And that's when, like, most recently, I'm like, what do I want to be when I grow up? But yeah, I'm 37, but I don't want to do what I'm doing forever. I love helping the kids. I really do. But I want to do more. And that's when my daughter, who's in Cal State Fullerton, she wanted to be a lawyer.
Nice.
And then she's like, it's too much schooling. I don't want to do it. So then she was like, what do I want to do? But now she wants to do a school counselor. Or for, I think it's family, actually. Okay. And I was like, you know what? I love that idea. Right. I would love to be a school counselor. Yeah. I would love it. Just to help. I don't know. Yeah. I guess that's just me, but I just love to help.
Well, again, it's like one of those things where it might be your calling, right? You have this experience. The reality is, just like schooling and or any other work, you only get it through either education, continued education, or hands-on training. Right.
And I think that's a huge one. I'm a very visual learner. And to me, it's being hands-on. Like you said, like I learn way better that way. So I didn't realize what I wanted to be when I grew up until I started doing it. Yeah. And then, I started working in the junior high, and I was like, yes, I love this and I want to go further. Yeah. So then I was like, back in school. So now I'm doing psychology classes.
That's awesome.
I know.
And I think a lot of that has to play with the fact of what you've experienced in your life.
I agree.
The reality is you experience something so traumatic, and it's paid into who you are as a person so strongly. Yeah. And now you have this calling to like help people. Well, where's the setting to do that? Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you have it as now going into, just being an educator in general, you're seeing all these children every single day, right? Mm-hmm. You're getting classes of 20, 30.
Well, it's special education, so
okay, got it.
Smaller classes, but yes, no, we're out there, but yeah, no, I agree, and I think you're right. If I hadn't lost my brother at such a young age, what would my life have been? Yeah, if he was still here, I'm sure things would have played out differently. Yeah. So it works in mysterious ways.
Yeah. One of the things that I ended up finding, and like a big reason why I fought through what I was going through with game day was, and I was like, it has to work. Like it has to work because, when I'm in there and I start talking to these guys, like a lot of people don't realize, but low testosterone will cause depression in men.
Okay.
It will cause depression. It's something that I was experiencing, which is how I knew something was going
See,
on.
I wouldn't know that.
I knew
Yeah.
I knew I was going through something, and it turned out I had low testosterone. So yeah, I mean, it makes you kind of groggy. You don't have enough energy. You have like a mental fog, if you will.
Wow.
Like so it's almost like you think you're going through some type of depression. In reality,
Yeah,
it's just your hormones.
Got it.
It's literally just a hormone. Like that's what testosterone is, just a hormone. And so if your hormone levels are off, right, you have all these different emotions that you're not really ready to manage. And so I literally every month talk to at least one guy who goes through those doors that almost always share the exact same story, where they go, I thought I was depressed. I started to have suicidal thoughts.
Oh my God.
And some of them, most of the time they're veterans that are coming in there. And the other thing about it is testosterone messes with the guy's ability for like their sex drive, their libido. It challenges them. And so like everyone has different things that mess with them. And so, I mean, imagine a guy who feels like they can't be a guy anymore.
Right.
They don't feel strong. They don't feel mentally aware. They feel lazy. They can't sexually perform. They start to be like, what am I here for? You know what I mean? Oh, and so like several guys have literally had that conversation with me. Like, you saved my life. And I'm like, no. And they're like, yes, because
but you did, yeah.
Because XYZ. Like I literally was, one of the guys was very upfront and said, I was actually on a veterans suicide chat. And so it's a suicide a chat for veterans to jump on if they're having suicidal thoughts, which is great. It's an amazing thing. And they jump on there, and sometimes nobody's suicidal, but they're just talking with each other and talking through things. Sometimes somebody will jump in there and says, hey, I need help. What do you guys recommend? This is what I'm experiencing. And then they just all help each other, right? And this guy said he actually went on there and he was telling them what he was experiencing. And one of the other guys was a patient of ours and literally told him, you should go check these guys out. He came into the clinic. He got on. He ended up having like 30 or 45 days where he was on treatment. And then he kept asking the provider that he wanted to meet one of the owners. Then they called me into the office and he literally shook my hand, teared up, and shared the story. And he was like, thank you, you saved my life. And it was just like, it's crazy. So again, you don't know what your calling is until you start doing it. Because I would have never thought, the reality was I got into men's health because I love the ability to physically transform my body and my mentality because of it. And then, just to help them physically be better, but I never had thought there was going to be such a huge emotional draw to it as well for these guys.
So I want to piggyback off that. I know we had asked social media for some questions and we got nothing back.
Yeah, you guys suck.
Except for my beloved Gammy. I love her so much. But she had talked about, her question was, what does a diet and junk food, how does that affect your mental health?
Yeah. So a lot of different ways. First of all, most people, and again, I'm not a trained professional, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just going to tell you from personal experience, when I was 400 pounds, I physically couldn't do a lot of things. I would get tired all the time. Running around trying to chase Mateo or walk the dogs was a challenge, like just overall. So if you don't have the right nutrition, if you don't have the right ability to be mobile, you're limited on the things that you can do, and
that fucks with your mental health.
And that is going to fuck with your mental health because now again, like you're sitting there being like, I would love to play with my son, but I don't have the energy to do it. Or I would
and then you start feeling down about yourself, I'm sure, because you're like, why did I let myself go?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, and maybe not everybody gets to a 400 pound, like, I mean, literally would go to amusement parks, wouldn't fit in certain seats. Like it was like shit like that would be like so embarrassing. The number of chairs that I've broken in my life, I swear they should like.
But it's funny because I met you when you were younger too. Obviously I met you through your older brother, but I don't remember you like that. Like I do, but I don't. Like I have, funny story, but my most vivid memory is that one New Year's Eve. Yeah. We went to the hotel and you were wearing your tuxedo shirt.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest I had ever seen you.
Yep.
And that was it.
And then, I graduated high school. I weighed 333 pounds, but I was tall, so I carried it decently well.
Yeah.
But then, life happens. You have kids. So then you get daddy weight, and then you just,
So you got bigger after that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I have a picture where I'm holding Mateo. That's probably the best picture. You could tell I'm huge, just huge. I'll send it to you.
That's crazy.
Big. So the heaviest I got was 400 pounds. And I only know it was 400 because the scale said error after it. And it was
Stop
a 400.
it.
No, I'm serious.
Oh, Lord.
And then at the hotel I was working at that point in time, they had the weights where they put the laundry onto to weigh the laundry
You got
scales.
on that?
And I got on it and it said 4 and it started to go up and I got off of it. So I knew I was 400 pounds. I don't know how heavy, but
Is that when you like hit a turning point, maybe for physically, mentally, like everything? You're like, I have to fix this.
I think.
Or what made you decide? Like,
Well, ultimately, it was I went to a doctor's appointment and had a physical, and I was already working out, so I thought I was strong. I thought I was physically fit, so I was like in the gym, like just doing heavy weights. But mass moves mass, so I really wasn't strong. It was just mass, and my blood work came back, and my blood work was really bad. I had to get on cholesterol pills. They were borderline like deciding if I was gonna, get on insulin, if I was diabetic, like that whole
wow.
like they were just everything was off. And my dad had just had a heart scare, not a full heart attack, but he had a scare. My sister had just got an implant put in. And then before that, my grandma had passed away for blockage in her arteries. And so that was the turning point for me.
Wow.
I was like, oh, I'm next. And again, for me, and this is, I think, why I've taken my body to the extreme, is I look at all the things that I've managed to survive through.
Right.
Two best friends passing away. They didn't get a choice, right? They both died in an accident. They don't have a choice to live. Here I am feeding myself fucking Doritos, and I had a bowl that it was like a giant like sharing bowl that I'd eat Chinese food out of because I'd get so much I'd have to dump it into a bowl, just garbage.
That's crazy.
Bad. But here I am choosing and to affect my health. And so that, eventually the mentality had to change.
Right.
So I think to that question, ultimately, what you put into your body is going to give you energy. And when you have energy, you have better mental awareness. There's a lot of studies on fasting that impacts your mental health. There's a lot of studies on just in general diet and exercise. I go for a walk every morning. I get up at 3:30. I go for a walk at 4 a.m. every morning. That's my routine. That 30-minute walk that I do at 4 a.m. is such a mental cleanse for me.
Yes, I agree.
And it allows me to put myself in a good mindset for the day. Or sometimes it allows me to just be better prepared, and I knock out something that makes me feel like I accomplished something. My life is not meaningless. Today I woke up, I made my bed, I went on a walk, I did my exercise. I invested in myself, so I'm not pointless. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But that was a great question. It was the only question.
Well, I know that so on Friday at school, we had mental health people out because, May's mental health. We had people out and they were asking every student. So before they could spin the wheel to win a prize or whatever, they were asking every student, what helps you deal with your mental health? And it was amazing to see the answers, because some of them were like, oh man, I never thought of that. There was running or listening to music. One was kickboxing. That great.
Yeah.
I would never know a kid's gonna be hey, I go do some kickboxing to help with my mental health. Yeah. That's amazing. I think one was coloring.
Yeah.
Drawing, things like that. And the fact that these people came out to a junior high and were asking students what they do to help with their mental health, that touched me. Yeah. That to me was I wish this was around. I didn't have that shit when I was growing up. Yeah. People didn't come to my school. I don't know if you had it.
I don't remember.
I don't remember them ever coming out. And I'm I love that they're doing this now. And I don't know if that's a scary thing or a good thing.
I think it just goes back to, and to maybe even, start to kind of wrap our arms around and close this out. I think it comes down to communication and awareness.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, people have realized it's not going away. You said it yourself. Suicide is not it's not taboo. It happens every day. And
unfortunately,
and all of us at some point in time are going to deal with grief, and that will impact your mental state. And you might make wrong decisions if you're not mentally prepared to deal with that grief or that situation. And so everyone who's, watching this, I think they can maybe take away from this. That's why those hotlines exist.
Correct.
That's why you have friends. That's why you have family. And if you don't feel that you can trust those people, or it's tough to have those conversations with those people, then you do need to seek some help.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable and sharing, and again, lighten the load.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, it is 100% okay not to be
And there's
okay.
help.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Joe.
I
I thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having me. Let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Thank you.
Well, before we go, I didn't do this at the beginning. Shame on me. But if you did want anybody to contact you, aside from the numbers that we already listed, is there an email or Instagram or anything like that you want to mention that people can?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram. I think it's Jessyca19, I believe. Don't quote me on it because I don't remember. Or you can reach out to my email, jessicaburdette@aol.com. Find me there.
Perfect. I'll tag those at the YouTube. So
thank you, Joe.
appreciate it. Thank you. Yay.
You did it.